We're live.
We're live.
We are bringing you, while the audience builds, hopefully to some sort of crescendo larger than one. We are coming to you from the desert today. I kind of like the wind to start.
Oh, yeah.
I guess we could do that too.
We're also on our old setup of rubber banding the phone to a water bottle.
Yeah, this is retro.
Throwback.
Oh, we've got somebody. Let's see if we can bring it up here too. There we go.
Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. Hey, welcome, and thank you so much. Actually, Alex will attest to this, that earlier this morning I just shouted out, "Oh my God, I forgot to publicly thank Lisa." The event was awesome, Lisa. Of course, obviously, almost entirely to you, and thank you very much. So for those of you joining in, we just finished the Business Black Ops event in Tempe.
Yep.
And we have a few lessons from there that we're going to share with you today. We happen to be in the desert. I'm responding to Lisa here. And so here's what we're going to be talking about today. We are going to, and Lisa's probably thinking, oh my, I've been subjected to this for 3 days straight. I don't need another day. And again, if you're watching, we realize that there is a wobble.
That'd be the desert
Due to
wind.
the desert wind, yeah. So we've got two things for you. A piece of it is from the Business Black Ops Field Manual, which we'll show.
And luckily for Steve Richardson, we're using the front camera, so it is backwards.
It's backwards, so that's disturbing. This is the second edition, by the way. And so we have we've selected a reading for the day from the Field Manual. Better questions and language patterns. That's going to be part one of the show, and part two of the show will be we did a program or an exercise that Alex helped me to develop called the Strategic to Tactical Bridge, and we're going to explain that. So for anybody that has a professional practice or a business where you either the wind is really picking up, which is awesome. It sort of looks more earthquakey, windy. I like it.
It's caused a little nausea.
So for those of you who have either a business or a professional practice, we're going to show you a way to read magazines, content. Well, actually, we'll talk about a couple places that you can get this. Find headlines that you like. We're not suggesting that you steal them or copy them, but we are suggesting that you can begin to make them into advertising and content headlines, and you can convert them then very easily. So we'll explain that process as a way of really getting to know your own business and avatar, and or if you have writers or marketing managers or outside services doing this for you, to be able to review what they're doing, to teach them this, and to make sure that the headlines are effective. And you could use bullets, you could use what we're going to show you to do bullets, to do headlines, to do subject lines in emails, to do the titling of products or services, all of those sorts of things. So it's going to be a short show today, so we can get out and enjoy the desert. And so let's get started. So the part from the Field Manual, which is arranged as different kinds of force multipliers, and just as a reminder for anybody listening to this who hasn't been on before, we have another guest. Hey, Bill Schindler has joined. Hey, Bill. Welcome. For anybody that isn't familiar with this concept, the force multiplier in terms of sort of its military application, which is where the expression's origins come from, force multiplier is anything. It could be a technology, a type of training that magnifies or multiplies the force that's out in the field. So, good example.
We use the one of night vision goggles pretty often to explain it, whereas normally a force wouldn't necessarily be able to operate at night because it's dark, whereas night vision goggles allow them to, so they can do something they normally wouldn't be able to do.
Operate with total clarity of vision. And then force multipliers can be sort of stacked on top of one another. So if you carefully select operators and train them, like a ranger or a SEAL, and you supply them with night vision goggles, that's a multiple force multiplier. Mm-hmm. So we spent the last 3-4 days talking to groups of business and professional practice owners about how to develop force multipliers of their practices. So one of the optimal force multipliers, it's one of those skills that when you develop it helps everything, is becoming a better communicator. And when you're a better communicator, you're by definition a better negotiator. There are some separate skill sets there, but you are a better manager and leader because you know how to create clarity in your communication. You're a better copywriter, generally a better marketer, and a better salesperson. So we want to start here with some little tools and techniques to become a way better communicator. So and these are all things that we taught at the event and that people responded to very favorably. So Peter Wishney joined. Hey, Dr. Wishney. And Peter could jump in with comments or shout out, not audibly, but in writing, liar or something like that if we talk about things we didn't really teach.
Or his Israeli girlfriends.
Yes, that's right. So before we begin is a good one. So we were teasing Peter during the event because he looks so buff now.
Yeah, he looks fantastic.
There were some suggestions, Dr. Wishney, that you had achieved these amazing results through a combination of incredibly hard work, which obviously you're doing, combined with human growth hormone.
Yeah.
That's obviously teasing, not a real rumor. So, Peter, you look fantastic and super fit. So one of the things that we did...
Katie Harper joined as well.
Katie Harper, welcome. So welcome, everybody. So one of the patterns we taught was when you're meeting somebody or you've entered their office or you're just starting, it's often useful to say, before we begin, and even lower your tone of voice and drop your hands a little bit. Because the human mind says, okay, we're not ready to start the negotiation. It's less stressful. We haven't even started yet. And so some of the defense mechanisms that might interfere with building rapport and getting to know that other person would go away. So this is actually a simple but very sophisticated and very effective technique, but it's not one that's natural. And so just practice it. And here's what I'll tell you is that when you practice it the first few times, is this one you use, Alex?
It is generally when I'm meeting with clients. Mm-hmm. So if there's an initial consultation or if we haven't met for a while and before even reviewing what we've done or what I've implemented for them or what they implemented on their own, usually that's a conversation, like that's the beginning of the conversation.
And look, this is a little bit formal way. Like before we begin, you might say, well, you are just meeting, but with people you know a little better, have worked with, you say, hey, before we even get started, before we open up, before we get going. So there's lots of variations on this, but it's all the same thing. And here's, I guess, what I wanted to ask you is, the first time you use it consciously, how's it feel compared to now when you use it all the time?
A little bit awkward because it's not really a pattern that you generally use, especially with somebody, if it's a new client or if it's...
Steve has just joined, and Steve, we just mentioned you, by the way.
Steve Richardson?
Yeah.
He'll have to go back and watch the replay of us holding up a backwards book.
And thank you for everybody. Steve, it was awesome having you there. I hope you go home and get it all fired up and get going. And we're excited that you're going to be that you're a member and joining the men and women in the desert again.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, using the exercise that we're going to explain, Steve came up with a pretty killer headline.
Yeah, that's true. He did. So, we're going to talk about that. And Steve, jump in with any comments. So, again, what we're doing here, we're going to reveal what we're really up to. The reason I ask Alex that question is I don't know that we've ever talked about it before, but I knew what the answer is going to be, is anytime you try some of these things we're teaching you the first time, it's going to feel awkward. But knowing that means, and we should warn Steve that we're in the desert, and so there is a wobble.
A breeze.
And hopefully that won't cause any kind of
vomiting,
nausea, motion sickness for people. Yeah. I guess we should warn our viewers on this show to maybe take some, what is that drug that you take, Dramamine. Yeah, Dramamine. So I agree, Alex, that when you first learn these techniques, it's awkward, but it doesn't take long to use a couple times to it becomes second nature.
And of course, the more you use it and the more you kind of adapt it and read the situation, it will become less and less awkward.
And in that regard, just to show you how it becomes less awkward, we actually, in the space of hours almost, taught people to just use two voices to do impressions of me or anybody else.
Really, anybody. We discovered that the entire Freaks family uses two voices to impersonate.
Yeah.
anybody.
One's a voice where things might be a little crazy, but we're not judging it, and the other word is where it's a little crazy and we're judging it. Yeah.
Like, what happened?
Exactly. So our point here, we got some thumbs up on that.
Nice.
Peter and Steve Richardson both do excellent impressions of us doing impressions now too. Yeah. So Steve says, would love to watch, but my plane is boarding. He's on there with Brian. I wouldn't let that stop you.
No.
When they say
no.
put those phones away, you just...
keep going.
what's
What
that
is
guy
that?
from 30
Alec
Rock?
Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin. You Alec Baldwin them.
Yeah, you get just super angry.
You
And
just shout some stuff. I'm playing Words with Friends. There's the other voice.
Right.
So, Steve, it's important to us that you stay on. Don't let the airlines bully you.
Also, we should note that we're not responsible if you get.
Yeah, it's correct.
I'll put it, united. United.
If we see video of Steve being dragged off a plane tonight, we might feel like a tinge of remorse.
But
Yeah.
just a tinge.
So there's for Steve coming off the plane, there were repeated. Safe flight, you guys, and glad that we had you with us. To pass on our regards to Brian. So here's the point we were making. When you learn a technique like this sounds super simple. Hey, before we begin, before we get started, before we get down to it, whatever it might be, but you'll find, and you'll start using it more and more, that it does exactly what it's supposed to do, which is people will relax a little bit. If you watch them carefully, you'll even see it. So the critical function that prevents a better building of rapport dissipates a little bit.
Yeah, and it gets better if you're relaxed and if you're putting off a relaxed.
Which is
vibe
why
that's
we're
out
telling you that you might feel a little awkward.
Yeah.
You'll notice all of this at first, but it won't discourage you, and you'll become more relaxed faster as you're doing it.
And I have to say, because most of my clients are remote, I'm not necessarily flying out to meet them or driving anywhere to meet them, or they're not coming to me to meet them. So this does even work over video or even over audio, just having the proper tone and utilizing it properly.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. I would slightly, but ever so slightly exaggerate it on Skype. Like I might go, hey, before we even get started, like, it's good to see you before we even get started. Drop the shoulders down, take a deep breath, and relax.
Yeah.
In a way that's just a slight exaggeration of how you might do it in person. Again, on the phone, just a slight, ever so slight. You don't want this to be artificial. You want it to be natural, but an ever so slightly greater reduction of the tone. Like, hey, before we even get going.
Also, Peter's commenting.
And Jamie has joined. Peter says the secret is goal setting and accountability to both myself and my trainer. Lost connection.
To
Just
his
random.
his note on looking fantastic and dating Israeli women.
Oh, that is. Now we have to be careful because Peter has a girlfriend who is not Israeli. So again, we should say
It's a joke.
that we're making it up. Correct. Jamie says, I wish I was having a Cave Creek end. Jamie, yeah, we wish you were here too. We've got to arrange that. And Jamie, we were talking about you because traffic and conversion will be coming up in the spring, and we're all looking forward to going. And we'll be sharing all of those things with our audience here on In Top Form too. And you may be wondering, where is Somnath Sikdar? He was at the event, taught at the event, ran all the hand-to-hand combat, close quarters combat training at the event. Somnath, hopefully you'll see this later. Thank you very much. You were awesome. So Jamie, glad that you're here. Jump in anytime, because Jamie's been victim of all of this throughout her whole life, even through childhood.
Yeah, you do use this on your children.
Yeah, all of these language patterns. Because here's
that and the punishment clock,
the punishment clock,
which I don't know is a language pattern, but it's certainly effective.
it's highly effective. So here's another thing. We have a rule, a communications rule. As soon as you try something new, you'll get resistance. So here's why you should know that rule is be prepared for it. And the technique that we just taught you is one of the ways to begin to change this, because you'll get a little bit less resistance if you have a higher level of rapport. But understanding that you're going to get resistance. So why is that? Why is it whenever you try anything new in just about any setting you get resistance?
Well, I mean, it's new. If it's new for you, you might not be as skilled, and it might come off as a little bit awkward.
So you're going to give yourself resistance to
Right.
make you change.
And depending on your rapport with the other person, there's always some kind of resistance. There's not trust yet.
Yeah.
So
And even if there is trust, I would say humans are so love to stay where they are when it's safe, which is
Right.
deeply ingrained biological response in evolution.
Yeah, so even a new conversation or even if you're expecting the conversation to happen about a certain topic.
By the way, horses on the trail are going by the front of our little ranch here.
Yeah, so it's even if it's an expected conversation that you might be having, that's your brain isn't really preparing itself in the way that you think it is. The unconscious brain is not preparing itself in the way that you think it is. So it's still trying to keep you in that safe space.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about when you get resistance. So for example, the 6-word question, rather than do it all here, because we want to give you some ways to create headlines and topics and email subject lines and things. So I'm just going to tell you that if you Google Dave Fries and the 6-word question.
We could even give them that URL.
Yeah, we could. Well, you see, you're so technology minded.
It's bit.ly. We can write it in there.
Yeah.
But it's bit.ly/DMF 6-word. So it's bit.ly/DMF, the number 6, and then the word. .ly.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to get that in there for you. There you go. And Jamie said to tell you she never got the punishment clock.
No. Well, that's because whenever she did anything wrong, Josh or I did something wrong that was a little worse.
So you guys got the brunt of it. So here's the thing is, before we begin, it just reduces resistance. Understand that anytime anybody's doing something different, including you starting to use that, you're going to get resistance. And the 6-word question is a way to overcome resistance. And in that video, it seems very simple, but there is a lot going on. There are a lot of techniques taught in that. You could also get the language of parenting, which explains the 6-word question as used like appropriately in family communication.
Up there too.
Yeah, we could throw that up there. Now here's the next thing. At some point after you use before we begin, you're going to be talking and you should be doing a lot of listening. And when you ask a question, here's a novel idea, and you're going to say, I already do that, obviously. Of course I do that. But the answer is you probably don't. But when you ask a question, just stop and actually listen. And when they're talking to you, don't be planning your next response. It's okay if you leave a little gap after they finish. Actually listen. We hear the first part of what they're saying. We start to plan our response for when they stop or take a breath. And we're not actually listening to the rest of it, where we get lots and lots of information. So when you're asking a question, consciously teach yourself to stop. This magically transforms the effectiveness of your communication. Hey, we're back. So I don't know exactly where we cut out. Thanks for hanging with us if you're still there. But we were going through a series of things and saying, before we begin, sort of breaks the tension, lets down the barriers. We're warning you that when you first use it, it's going to seem a little bit awkward. You're giving yourself resistance. Understand that whenever you're talking to somebody, you're going to get resistance. So we also gave you, it's down in the comments, a link to 2 resources, the language of parenting, how to overcome resistance and communicate more effectively in the family setting, and the Dave Fries and the 6-word question, which is a question that you could use in any kind of context to overcome resistance. A couple of, one other.
Man, you have full signal.
That's AT&T.
I know. Oh, there we go. We're back.
We're back. So sorry about this. So one of the last things we want to talk about before we switch over to the other exercise is that when someone answers you, the first piece of information they give you will probably be a lie. They won't even realize they're lying to themselves and to you. And by that I mean they're going to give you the answer that they had consciously planned out. And so one of the most powerful tools I think we talked about in the Business Black Ops was the idea of the and, what else, and silence. And the way this works is when somebody gets to the end, you've asked them a question, they give you an answer, you go and, or what else, or just stay silent and let them fill in the silence. And I was talking about...
doesn't work. Oh,
we're
right.
back. Let's give this
For the 4th time.
one more stab. And thank you for everybody if you're hanging in there. We really appreciate it.
3 or 4 people here.
So just to review, this is going to be quite an editing project for the podcast.
Yeah.
We've gone through the technique before you begin, why that creates resistance in you, why change creates resistance in others, how you overcome the resistance, and then the idea of stopping and listening and not planning your response, and finally using the "and" or "what else." And I was telling the story of Charlie Seltzer, and when I first went to see him, I gave him the answer. He asked me, like, "Why are you here?" And I told him, and he said, "What else?" And then he said, and then he said, "Mm-hmm," and then just kept quiet, and I kept providing more and more information. And that's what people will do to you.
That's something that's actually pretty easy, and I think you feel less awkward doing that than you do before we begin.
Yeah, because I think when people are in genuinely good communication mode, they do that naturally anyway.
yeah.
Let's just try to get... So, part 2, in the desert.
I don't know if that other one posted or not. I wouldn't bother doing the recap
No.
because of all the issues we're having.
Well, so hopefully folks will come back, but we appreciated everybody's patience. This
Also,
was
we
a
are
new one.
well, as long as that didn't overheat. So we should explain that because of the desert. I don't know if they could see this, but my phone has fried, and I can't use it. So,
Maybe ever.
yeah, that would be a shame.
You said that with a little nervousness.
Yeah.
So we'll wait and see if anybody comes back. But we probably could still go ahead and shoot
I was
this.
going to see. I was hoping the podcast also didn't fry, but it looks like we're good on that.
So it didn't melt the card
No.
inside the Zoom. We have had some questions about that, so maybe while we're waiting for the audience, we can show the Zoom too
Yeah, so there was a couple questions about this.
at the event.
Yeah, and actually, I forgot to turn it down, so we might be really loud on the podcast at the event. But this is what we're using to record the podcast, the Zoom H6 device, and we're just using one of the connectors that come, or microphones that come with it.
Lisa's very patient and loyal.
She
She's
is.
back. Thanks for coming back, Lisa.
Sorry, yeah, it's just adjusting the volume.
So Alex has suggested that maybe we want to just skip the recap because we finished part 1 of the event before the phone melted down, and that was just on better language patterns.
Yep, and we're not sure if that was saved, so if it wasn't, we'll post the podcast.
Yeah, we'll get the podcast up for everybody. But now what we're going to do is something that's really useful, and I was just describing it when the phone started vibrating and smoking
There was like a little flame coming out
from the heat of the sun. And that is that one of the exercises we do is we try to get companies and practices to figure out more precisely who it is they're selling to, who their best buyers are, what the products and services are that those buyers want and are really happy paying for. Mm-hmm. And so we often go through this with clients, and you and I have both experienced this, and we kind of work together to build a solution to it, which is clients get to the end of that, they go, okay, now I understand my buyer much more, but what do I do? So one of the exercises we had them do in the
Or
business
if you're
back up,
Tom Foster, you shout that.
he shouted angrily, Zach,
Where am I?
am I in the desert? So look, here's what happens. What we do is once we have them figure out who there was a like, who they are selling to, then the first part of the exercise, we did an abridged version of this yesterday, is we have people write. Now look, not everybody that owns the business does this, but they should do it just to learn are their copywriters doing a good job? It'll help them to teach their copywriters or their internal marketing people. But we might also have their internal marketing people write 50 bullets. So sort of write down, what are the features? What should people do? What is it that the thing's going to tell them? All of these sorts of things.
Something to note when you're doing feature bullets is to always start with the benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So benefit dash explanation of feature and benefit.
Mm-hmm. And I like to do benefit of the benefit,
benefit,
too.
yeah.
So I guess a good example of this that we gave at the event was, car has super nice stereo.
Yep.
That is the feature.
Yep.
The benefit is, to someone, benefits will be different, by the way, so often the feature will trigger multiple benefits.
Yep.
Benefit to somebody that really likes listening to music on the way to work is that they're going to be happier because they're listening to really high quality music on the way to work. And then the benefit of the benefit is that if they own their own business, they're going to get to work happy rather than angry.
Or if they don't, if they're an employee,
Yep.
you're going to be more productive and make your
because you got there
Employer
happy.
happier and
Yeah, so
you know.
benefit of the benefit. Then there's benefit of the benefit of the benefit. So if you're an employee and you're happy, you've got more energy, you get more stuff done, and your employer goes, give that man or woman a bonus, you've made more money. But of course, that's not even the benefit that everybody's looking for. It's what they're going to do with that money. It helps them to solve a problem. Kids need tuition paid. It helps them to enjoy something. I need a vacation. And so it has the cycling effect of being better and better. So what we had people do was write that sort of thing, 50 bullets, and then we have them convert them into headlines. To help them convert them into headlines, we gave them piles and stacks of magazines, and we said, go into these magazines and find ads and copy and headlines about stories and things like that that you convert into a formula. So a formula headline the formula might be something, get all the yeah with none of the oh. So, lose weight and feel great without having to give up pizza, pasta, and 6 meatballs in a serving.
Yeah.
So that's kind of headline. So we took a few of them.
That's quite the meal, by the way.
Pizza is the appetizer.
Get me a pizza,
Some
some spaghetti, and 6 meatballs.
And typically, when you make that order, at least in my observation, you also order a Diet Pepsi.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why, but that seems to be.
Well, what else would you drink?
Well, red wine. You probably get both.
Okay, Rem.
Okay, so here we go. So what we've done is we've taken headlines from various sources, and we've turned them into a formula. And so I keep them on these. And so when I go to write bullets or headlines or things, I have millions of approaches that I can use. Well, at least 500.
Millions are that's a little exaggerated.
Well, I mean, if you take 500 and you multiply them by enough variations, you get to something over 1 million. I like that Lisa's hanging in there.
Yeah, she is.
It's not like she's never heard this before.
No,
At least it-
especially not for 3 days straight.
Straight. It's impressive that she's still hanging in there. So people struggling to blank, in this case the original headline said pay off debt, may be in for a surprise. Now, a couple things about this. So it would be people struggling to blank may be in for a surprise. Now, you could add a bad surprise or good surprise. I think this headline works because it doesn't tell you what kind of surprise. And it works because it identifies the person that it's speaking to very clearly. So people struggling to do something that your clients or customers want or need to.
Something to note on that is if you're going to use curiosity in the headline,
Which is what this
usually
does.
you want to go in and explain more in depth in the copy. Whereas if you're
Yeah.
going to use, and this goes for subject lines too, if you're using curiosity subject lines, you want to, once they open the email, and it's not that one works better than the other, it's pretty much equal. You just have to make sure you're connecting copy back to it.
Yeah, you want to answer it because
Yeah.
they've come in expecting and wanting an answer. In this case, I might also say, my own phone is interrupting us.
This has been a particularly
Difficult
tough broadcast.
in top 4.
As most things are in the desert.
Yeah. We just saw, how about that car? That car is only like a year old, too. And all the paint had just basically
It
been
was more
burned
than
off.
a year old. This is not 1995. The guy
The sun just does burn the paint off cars out here.
does.
So I like this one. I might add people struggling to blank. And the blank here should be filled in with something that your demographic is trying to do or struggling
And you're
with.
going to understand that by going through the avatar exercise, and you're going to be able to fill that blank in, possibly with one of the bullets that you created.
Exactly. So we'll have another show on this. Somebody else has joined us. Who is that? We can tell you.
We can't tell. And
We should apologize to
disappeared.
them if they were on earlier. But so that's a good one. People struggling to blank something that your audience is struggling with may be in for a surprise. I might add a big surprise, but I wouldn't say a bad surprise or a.
Well, it depends.
You might.
You might.
Yep. So here's one: blank. How to outsmart the competition. So if you have a target, for example, that's lawyers or doctors or podiatrists or orthodontists, you'd say, orthodontists, how to outsmart the competition. That could be a subject line. It could be a headline, any of those.
What magazines do we get these out of?
So, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's talk about that. So if you want to go old school, what you want to do is be consistently asking your best clients, customers, and patients, hey, what sort of magazines? And you got to set this up. I actually think you could just ask them and nobody would think that was odd. But it certainly would help to make you feel more comfortable asking the question, to say, we like to talk to our customers, our patients, our clients about all the sorts of things that they enjoy. So we make sure that we're making this an optimal kind of experience for you. So can you tell us and what sort of things you enjoy? By the way, if a lot of them tell you they are advertising in a particular newspaper or magazine, or they read a particular website, that could tell you how you could easily reach them with advertising. It could tell you where you take out sponsorships of some kind. It could tell you the kind of gifts to give them, but it will also answer the question you just asked, which is, what else should we look for? So if we see an advertiser consistently reaching out to people in a particular way, that would be a good one. Same with, but like when I logged on this morning, I went to a couple of sites just to get headlines. You know, any kind of news site. So these don't have to be headlines and advertisements, although that might well be true, but any kind of news headline too. And so I go to the news sources and the recreational websites that my clients and customers go to, and I get these. So very good question. Here's one from a financial website, which I haven't even turned into a formula yet. I just jotted it down. Some good news about the coming bad times. The reason I just jotted it down is what's called a fear headline. So people who are worried that the economy is in a precarious position are going to take a look at that. But this could be adapted. Some good news for whoever about the coming bad times for whoever. Make sense? So this is just a very generic one, but it's good for subject lines. Here's how to blank. And the blank is something that your clients, customers, or patients want or need, or how to overcome something that they have a problem with or are afraid of. So here's how to blank is a really good one. You can create a lot of headlines, bullets, content from that. How you can legally profit from blank. So this one, again, can be very easily adapted, but it flirts with the idea of illegality, too. And so what it's going to do is it's going to say how you can legally do something that sounds on the face of it to be illegal. And again, it could say how you could legitimately do this, or lots of variations on that one. Here was the original headline for the next one. 5 expected Social Security changes in 2018. So the first blank is the number. So it could be 7, it could be 3, it could be, there are versions of this that try to overwhelm. I think we were using the cover of Cosmo, and it was like
79.
76 or 79. Yeah, we won't say what that was because that was kind of naughty. And it was 79 things, so somebody was getting pretty creative there. I say that you could make this headline say blank, expected or unexpected. So that Social Security changes, it could be tax law changes, it could be, whatever your business is. In 2018, for next week, in November. See, this is what Tyson, I once walked in the desert with Tyson, and he was doing his walking thing, and eventually his arm got tired, and he shouted in Australian all sorts of rude
That's
things.
because he was used to doing it for like a minute, and he didn't tell you that, so you went on for like 3 to 12 minutes or something.
Yeah, so, but then I noticed his got longer all of a sudden. He liked that format. He just didn't like how his arm felt.
All I'm hearing are excuses.
Excuses. Here's a headline just from, it picked up where we were, so it was Arizona Solar Program has power companies furious. So it could be blank, has blank, maybe your competition or something like that, furious. Or it could say the blank has your clients, customers or patients, furious. You would identify them. So hopefully that's helpful. We apologize for all the technical difficulty. These technical difficulties today were way different than our usual ones.
Yep.
Our usual ones have to do with software or something of that sort. This was just the sun.
Desert related.
The wind was blowing.
Yeah.
Apparently there's only one cell phone tower in like 400 miles here, so we didn't have a lot of signal. And then the sun burned up the camera, which we'll just put in the fridge.
Yeah.
Hopefully will. This
But-
one's starting to heat up too.
So listen, thank you to everybody that was at the event. Thank you to everybody that tuned in. We'll have the whole podcast edited and up, and we'll let everybody know on the In Top Form page. I hope you could take the information that we gave you, whip your personal life and your communication skills into top form, and then apply these things to your business, your professional practice. I had great fun. Thank you, Lisa,
fun.
for all the help that you gave us. Thank you, Alex, for all the help. It made it a really spectacular event for everybody. I think.
We should note that the In Top Form podcast has been updated. I know there was a hiatus on uploading the podcasts to
I
iTunes.
think producer Leslie was held captive in by Boca Haram or something like that.
That's probably what it was.
Yeah.
Malvern's a very dangerous place.
But she got free. She picked the lock, which was kind of a cool thing that we taught everybody to do
Yep.
at Business Black Ops. And now she's back and hopefully posting one a week every Friday from now on. So sometimes they would come in big chunks, but there's a lot of them now if you were missing it.
Mm-hmm.
Go back and listen. And
Go back and rate 5 stars.
yeah, you should. And then if you give it a 5-star rating,
Also, give it a comment.
yeah, a comment would be awesome. And if
review.
you do that, I mean, anybody could qualify. Just tell producer Leslie, just send us a message here.
Yeah, to In Top Form.
If you send it to In Top Form, we will enter you, and we still have a number of awesome prizes to give away.
Do
We'll
we have
in October.
tactical flashlights?
Yep, we have a tactical flashlight.
books.
Oh, that reminds me, Katie, I know, dropped off the call here, but we've got to check and see if she got her tactical flashlight or not. Yep, we've been giving away and shipping out the books, tactical flashlights, all kinds of things. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. I think we'll probably catch just do a little mini one tomorrow, now that we figured out what all's going on. Lisa, safe travels as you go home. Remember to be in top form.